It should be obvious language is important, but it is one hell of a fickle bitch. We have this man, who is literally but give or take about 80 years after the man has used his noggin splatter to paint the inside of a bunker somewhere, someone else comes along and is also somehow literally It will be a cold day in hell before we get a consensus on just who exactly this guy is. But in the meantime, ladies, gentlemen, lizard people, and variants thereupon, we can waste our time disagreeing on the meanings behind words and when their appropriate usages. So, here's my 2 cents to throw into the void. Take it or leave it, I don't give a fuck. I've noticed of late, and by of late I do mean in the last 24 years that I've been alive, that people have been sort of blasé with their verbiage, without regard for anyone, all over the place. In fact, it yields some pretty damaging consequences if you, me, everyone allows it to fester. And that, my dear friends, is the flippant giddiness with which everyone and their mother rushes to dehumanize their fellow man. Now, I'm old enough to remember when the word racist was exclusively intended to be describing a person who actively held the undoubtedly big-brained opinion that somehow the color of one's skin rendered them superior to all other skin-colored persons upon this planet. But I'm also young enough to remember professors touting racism as a systemic evil endemic to every individual aspect of one's life, and that despite all the good intentions in your heart, having the wrong skin color meant that you still participated in racism on a daily basis. Well, you and your dogs, and bugs, birds, fish, plants. I could go on. I'm also old enough to recall when Nazis were an exclusive reference to that sect of people in Germany during the darkest of times from world history whom enacted systemic genocide against a people with a specific ethnic background. Yet I'm also young enough to see for my own eyes those of the same ethnicity once concentrated to Auschwitz and Dachau be called the very thing that sought to eradicate them from the planet. I'm also old enough to recall my own mother, bless her heart, scarring me with stories of being kidnapped or worse by a stranger who might offer me candy from a white van, confidence from my meanie-head parents, and complimentary affections to disguise their actually very malicious and very gross, selfish, base intentions, while simultaneously being young enough to hear about teachers who have been called child groomers by people singularly for having the gall to own the fact that they exist in a relationship with a member of the same sex. The common thread here, my good viewer, is that these words, like Nazi, like groomer, like racist, and plenty of others I'm sure, are intended to generate a representation in your own mind of something inhuman, undeserving of your ears and your eyes, much less your good opinion. In their original purpose, they were useful for categorizing just what kind of evil monster you may have found yourself contending with in an actual person. However, throughout the course of their tenure as words, they have come to be redefined by careless repetition at best, and malicious redefinition at worst. But Weebo, language has been shifting around since the dawn of language itself. Why do we care? Let me explain. So if you recall, the ADL got into some heat a short while ago for attempting to redefine the word racism. I even made a video about it. Links in the description if you'd like to check it out. So let's not pretend like no one cares. You see, a lot of people support this new definition, but not nearly enough people support it enough to avoid the onslaught of outrage brought on when they did try to change the definition. Especially not with everything being archived the way it is nowadays. So, while you might adhere to a traditional definition of what racism is, perhaps, there's a Twitter user out there with the handle Can'tHandleLols2022 who most definitely is eating, sleeping, and breathing the New Age definition that discludes white people.
So then, can white people experience racism? What you're saying is when somebody says to you, cracker, honky, I don't trust white people, colonizer, white devil, that you're experiencing racism. Well, you're not. White people are not victims of racial profiling, redlining, gentrification. You see, the system targeting marginalized communities is racism. So even though a white person may experience prejudice, they'll never have to worry about being targeted by the entire system. And that's what racism is.
Not a big deal, you say. It's only Twitter, you might say. But that could easily be anyone on the other side of that handle calling you a racist and meaning it, despite you knowing in the depths of your core that you're not a racist. It doesn't matter, because they've already accepted a new reality. That being that racism is the new age definition and not the one that you've accepted, which excludes you from the definition. And at that point, you're just talking past each other. But that's the least of your problems, at least as far as this video is concerned. Normally, I don't really care about how people use language and such. Free speech is of the utmost importance. I stand behind that 100%. But freedom of speech only goes so far. You have the freedom to speak on any topic, but you do not have the freedom to defame any individual without cause. Just like you have the freedom to carry a gun, you do not have the freedom to shoot anybody on a whim. You see? Where I become cautious is with negative assertions about the individual, and where I draw the line is with defamation. If you're not careful, someone happens to come along and find your actions racist, you can be fired, fined, arrested, incarcerated over something as stupid as teaching your pug dog to do a Nazi salute.
Girlfriend is always ranting and raving about how cute and adorable her wee dog is, and so I thought I would turn them into the least cute thing that I could think of, which is a Nazi.
And at its core, the purpose of wanton defamation is in truth an act of dehumanization, which is defined as the process of depriving a person or a group of positive human qualities. Racism not being one of those positive human qualities. For example, the natives in the early days of America were regarded as savages, making it easier in the minds of the colonists to enact genocide on them. The Nazis regarded both the Jews and the Russians as animals, making it easier for German soldiers to fight without mercy, and its citizens to turn over their neighbors to the authorities. Plenty of Muslims who had nothing to do with any sort of terrorist organization or any of Islam's more questionable tenets have been called terrorists in their lifetime following the tragedy that was 9/11, and hence attacked for their religion and the actions of these few abhorrent individuals. I've even made a video about a phenomenon wherein pro-choice extremists use fetus as a parasite to effectively dehumanize babies to justify abortions, and so on and so on, and the examples are pretty much endless. Humanity sucks to itself. Dehumanization of the individual begins with a negative assignment of a word towards that individual, and it doesn't stop there. Now, I have no problem with dehumanization as a phenomena. It can be done, not well, but it can be done in a correct way. I don't want to say harmlessly, because that's not quite true, but it can be done in a correct way. You can call a Nazi. I'm not going to have a problem with that. Yes, it dehumanizes the person, but it's also accurate. And you can call a racist, and it dehumanizes the racist, but if the racist is a racist, then it is accurate, etc., etc., etc. But I didn't write this video because people were calling actual Nazis Nazis. I wrote this video because people were calling people that they disagreed with Nazis, racists, and yes, groomers. Especially because people were calling people groomers. Because those words, specifically groomer, when attached to a person's identity, evoke a very violent reaction from certain parties. Groomer seems to be the latest in a long line of dehumanizing pejoratives used in public discourse to silence others. And to be frank, seeing conservatives come out in droves to use it against the libs after years of watching those same people complain about being called Nazis, complain about the left justifying it, and punching Nazis, that was the impetus for this video. Sorry, but it was. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. That's what it was. You played yourself. Groomer, the word groomer, has a visceral effect on the people who hear it because it's just shy of calling someone an outright pedophile, which is just about one of the worst things you can be in our society. And yes, pedophile is also one of those words that falls into overuse category. And it's important to call it out when it's used, or misused, I guess, in these cases, because people have been killed for its association to their identity. Therefore, I don't think it's something that you should be using lightly. It is a serious accusation, one that should be reserved for those whom it fits without doubt or question. Because if that word is used to accuse a person of something that they didn't actually do, essentially you're saddling that poor sap with some of the most horrific descriptors that you can assign a person. And whether you like it or not, it will have an impact on how that person is perceived going forward. But I'm getting into the weeds here a little bit. Let's dial it back. Make it more umbrella-y, I guess. The assassination of one's character is not something to be taken lightly. Full stop. Actually, no, I have more to say. It is an extremely effective tool to bring someone down one or several pegs to their lowest point at its most nefarious. It can rain catastrophe on the interpersonal life of the individual and of their loved ones. For an example of an actual cautionary tale that fixed this exact topic, let's take a look at Johnny Depp's long battle against Amber Heard's defamation of his character, calling him a wife-beater on the world stage, and the subsequent treatment of him by the world in the years following that defamation. His reputation took a hit. His career, his family was put in the middle of that, and he was just called a domestic abuser. He was just called that by one person.
What have you lost as a result of Miss Heard making these allegations against you?
Nothing less than everything. When the allegations were rapidly circling the globe, telling people that I was a drunken, cocaine-fueled menace who beat women, it's over. You know, you're done. So, what did it do to me? What effect did it have on me? I'll put it to you this way. No matter the outcome of this trial, second the allegations were made against me, the accusations, the second that more and more of these things, as I said, metastasized and turned into fodder for the media. Once that happens, once that happened, I lost then. That is to say, I lost because that is not a thing that anyone is gonna just put on your back for a short period of time. I will live with that for the rest of my life.
Every debate should end with Johnny Depp is a court-certified wife-beater as proved with overwhelming evidence in a court of law. Don't fall into the Darwin-whataboutism rabbit holes.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I'm aware that I cannot make you do anything you're unwilling to do, but I will offer you this advice. Should you choose to participate in language, do so with precision and care. Otherwise, you're literally Hitler.